Transportation and Commerce will come to order. With the clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Behringer, Alderman Moore, Alderman Vaquero,
Present.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia, Chairwoman Krewson.
Here. Okay, there are four, I think it is bills, maybe it's five, before us this morning. We'll just take them in order. The first is Board Bill 153. You have the Board Bill and an executive summary before you. So, Rhonda, would you like to introduce your team and take it from there?
I will. For those of you, I think most of you have seen Antonio Strong. He's our Deputy Director of Finance Administration. Rob Salarano is the manager of our Properties Department. Some of you may have not met Ron Stella yet. Ron is our Deputy Director for Operations and Maintenance. Amber Gooding runs our BDD office. Jean Tiemann is still a little bit new to the team in this regard, but she now takes over all of our liaison relative with the Board of Aldermen and all of our board bills. Mario Pandolfo is our attorney at the airport. So thank you all for having us here this morning. And with that, you've got the first one, right?
Right. We're asking your approval for a luggage cart concession at Lambert St. Louis International Airport. This is a standard luggage cart, so there's 8 dispensing units where people can use a credit card or cash to rent a luggage cart. There's 5 units in Terminal 1, 3 units in Terminal 2. The term of the concession is 5 years, beginning December 1st, 2016, ending November 30th, 2021. Revenue to the airport is the percentage fee of 51% of gross receipts after the first $9,000 per month. We did bid this out. The incumbent, Flight Safety Systems, bid 40%, and SmartCart bid 51%. We're asking your approval today for the concession agreement with SmartCart, who bid the 51% of gross receipts. ACDBE participation, the goal was 4.23%, and SmartCart has agreed to participation of 9.78 ACDBE participation, 9.78%. We respectfully request your approval of this board bill.
And Rob, what is the amount of revenue that we expect to get off of this?
It's right now in 2015 we got about 14,000, so it'll come up maybe just below 20,000. It's not a big concession, but it's a great service for the. It's really a needed service for the customers.
Sure. Are there any questions, Alderman Vaccaro?
No.
Alderman Cone?
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard?
No questions.
Chair, will you entertain a motion?
I make a motion to pass Board Bill 153.
Out with the DCAS recommendation.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Vaquero,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Chairwoman Krewson.
Aye.
We have 4 ayes and 0 noes.
Okay, hearing that, Board Bill 153 passes out with the DCAS recommendation. Next board bill is Board Bill 185, which you also have before you here. Director Tom DeBravy?
Antonio Strong will present this one for us. I'll be happy to answer questions when he's finished.
Good morning, Alderman. We're requesting a transfer for $1.3 million from our airport debt service stabilization fund to our airport annual budget. Per our bond indenture, we're required to maintain this debt service stabilization fund for emergency debt service needs and or airport operational emergencies. Our debt service balance is currently like about $33.7 million, but we're only required per the bond indenture to maintain a balance of $27.4. But you cannot spend the money unless you have an operational emergency or emergency debt service needs. So we have an excess funds of $6.3 million. We would like to transfer $1.3 million into our airport annual budget, and the purpose of that is for recently our cleaning contractor gave us a 10-day notice that they would be leaving the airport, and they terminated their contract. And we operate kind of a lean budget, and with that operation of such a lean budget, that kind of left us in a hole where we need to transfer funds to cover the rest of the cleaning services that we will need for the airport. So we were respectfully requesting your approval to transfer $1.3 million into our airport operational budget.
And so maybe explain that, the 1.3 million is the additional amount that will be required to the new vendor, and the new vendor, is the MBE subcontractor on the old
Yes.
walk us through that.
Sure. So, when the prime contractor left, we asked our consultant or subcontractor, is there any possibility that he would be able to assist us with operating this contract or operating on an emergency basis until we can bid this out? So this was, this contract with our prime contractor was expected to end, what's it,
April 1st.
Yeah, April 1st. And so, but when he left us in October, that kind of left us in a bind where we needed emergency cleaning services. We still need to have the cleaning at the airport until the end of this contract. So our subcontractor, he did step in and offer to help. But again, he's also raising the level of standards. We've had some standard and quality issues with the prime contractor. This subcontractor is raising the level of standards and quality that we need for the airport.
And who was the prime contractor who left?
Pride.
Pride
Pride, and the subcontractor
is Regency, and Regency was doing the minority participation for Pride. They're a
Right.
local contractor. Regency does a lot of work throughout the city. The only part of the contract at the airport that we were satisfied with was the work being done by the sub himself. The overall lead contractor, Pride, we had numerous difficulties with, and had actually been working for months with them on trying to have a better standard quality. You know, one of the things we heard, especially when I came to the airport, was the cleanliness of the airport, or the lack of it, and how important that was to the community. So that has been a huge focus of us. When this contract was bid out, you know, airport cleaning are their huge contracts. I mean, and they're hard to maintain. But one of the bright sides in the contractor that we had was the minority sub. When we went to him, because it's the first time that he would take on a job this large, he's used to being the sub, he's been working on growing his participation. He's been an extremely good partner at the airport, so we felt confident that he could bring up to speed. He has a lot of other contracts throughout the region, including some fairly significant ones, so he knew that he could draw off of that. There was also some additional work that we built into this emergency contract to get the airport back up to speed. The floors were not in the condition that we wanted. The bathrooms had not been maintained to the level we wanted, and as I said, this has been an ongoing challenge for us. And we actually had put notice onto the Pride contract. We were in the process of trying to notify them that we were not happy, and we were going to terminate that with a larger window than they had given us. I think they saw that coming, and that's why they just walked away from the contract. So there was some additional work to the tune of about $300,000 that we scoped that we needed for someone to come in and really get the floors back to the condition that we wanted. So I know the number's large. This is one of the things, and for us at the airport, you know, we take very seriously our budget. That's one of the things we've been very proud of. And if you hadn't seen, we recently got upgraded again in our ratings to a positive outlook. So it's important to us that the budget be very closely monitored. That's why we felt very compelled to go to the comptroller and ask for the debt service fund to release this emergency, so that one, we can get the cleaning that we need and we can keep the airport looking the way it needs to look, but two, we're not affecting our day-to-day budget. So
long story short, the main guy quit. The airport was not very clean. We gotta have a clean airport for the next 6 months. It's gonna cost a little more money than what it would have cost, but we're not really in a position with a 10-day notice to go out for bids. So
Right.
spending this money on the subcontractor, and then you're gonna be bidding out.
that should be released tomorrow.
Tomorrow, you'll be starting the bid process
Right.
to get a new contractor, or new, or maybe renew, in there, for.
The next 3 years.
The next 3-year term,
Right.
so. That's the story, so. Alderman Carl, looks like you might have a
I
question.
do have a bunch, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When the other guy cut out early, was there a penalty?
You know, we've talked about this in great detail. We have some opportunity to try and recoup their monies, but it's a long process, and for some of the challenge was the way that we had bid this contract was not based on manpower. We had looked at this when we put out this RFP in the past, and it was based on looking at the scope of work. So we discovered the scope of work, or we put out the scope of work. That contractor bid that scope of work. It's a little challenging, and one of the things we're changing in this contract is going forward, we're not just bidding out scope of work, we're mandating specific full-time equivalent heads as well. That was not in the last contract. So in an effort to try and go after and recoup monies on that, we're not sure it's worth our time and effort because there wasn't a full-time equivalent contract. They were not meeting the standard. They'll tell you they were not. But it's as he said, she said, back and forth, and there's just a lot of challenge with that. I think from our perspective, we want the airport clean, we want to move forward. We've learned a lot in this contract, which we're adopting into the new contract. Ron Stella's team's in charge of that. And we've looked at a lot of different contracts across the country and those that seem to be working the best. We've tried to incorporate all of those into this so that we not only have the scope of work, but we have the full-time equivalent heads. If they don't have that number of manpower at the airport, then they can't bill us for that. That wasn't the case in the last contract. So it's a little more challenging, Joe, to try and recoup that.
And
Mario,
their
Ron.
legal right in the contract was a 10-day
Yeah.
no clause cancellation. We've since changed that in the solicitation that's gonna go out for bid, we raised that to 120 days, no fault cancellation. So right now, they gave us the proper cancellation notice for no fault, so there's no opportunity to recoup for that.
So the bid goes out tomorrow.
I believe
Yeah,
tomorrow.
tomorrow or Monday, it's
And-
done and we're
and-
just signing it off.
And how long will it take to replace the contractor?
We have a timeline that we're looking to have it implemented by April 1st. So through all the steps of, the review, solicitation review, airport commission, E&A, and TNC.
So we're talking 5 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
And,
6 really, because this happened back in October.
right.
okay, 6
Early
months.
Yeah.
And the company that we're already paying as a sub,
Mhm.
because they're getting paid, right, I assume?
Yeah, they were part of the, they weren't getting paid through us, we were paying the prime was paying them as the sub.
Right, so,
now-
right, I understand, but
Right.
but it was still in the budget to pay the primary, right?
Correct, and we're
And the
using that
pri-
budget,
And
Joe.
the primary's paying the subcontractor,
Right.
so the money should have been there.
Our
Well-
costs did go up.
Yeah.
This is
So-
extra money, Joe.
So I think,
Yeah.
like the director said, we had a non-contractual obligation for staffing. When they proposed their staffing level to us, they proposed 74 people. Well, we looked through all their records, it turns out there's about 55, and that really explains the lack of quality. But we could not contractually obligate them to add more people and further reduce further increase their costs. So we've moved that up, we looked at the 74. The 74 is a little light with the added square footage of tile and other things we put on this contract. We recently added about 45,000 square feet of tile in Terminal 2. We had a couple of other areas. And with that increase of size and our traffic, we're probably projected for another 1 million passengers this year estimated. So that extra 1 million passengers coming through the bathrooms and the terminals requires more staffing. So instead of the recommended 74, we're gonna go up to 83.4 full-time equivalent employees, and we think we're good with that.
Right. And we do believe, for all of the aldermen, just as we go forward, we do believe this contract is gonna be more expensive than the prior one. But there are reasons for that. When we did some of the renovations, which was not the case when they were completed, when the original RFP was put out, we took a lot of the carpet away. As a result of that, we've got tile cleaning. So before, we had a different company that did shampooing for the carpets that was not in this contract. Now we've created tile, which is part of this contract. So there are things different as we move forward. Go ahead.
So we've reduced that contract for carpet cleaning
Yeah.
from $450,000 a year to $100,000
Right.
a year. We also compared our staffing level in 2010. In 2010, we had about 93 city custodians. We reduced that number through natural attrition to about 37. So we reduced costs on one end with our city costs, our contract cleaning costs for carpet, but the other ones have increased. So between a 2010 comparison to 2017, we're still under about $125,000 for our overall cleaning expenses
From 2010.
from 2010, if we were looking at a comparison.
I have no other questions,
Thanks. Alderman Cone,
No questions.
Alderwoman Howard.
I have a question. So
Mhm.
this 1,300,000 is to cover the difference between, now when would their contract have been up? In October?
In April.
In April?
So it's to cover, one, there was about 300,000 that was added work that we spec'd out to get the floors mainly
Okay.
up to, so we're really asking, even though it's 1.3, for the additional cost, it's about $1 million, because that 300 was above and beyond in order to get us back up to speed. So yes, I think there was about 800,000 that would have been paid out between now and April with the existing contract. We took that into account. This is above and beyond that.
Now, will you be getting additional services for this?
We will be getting what,
Since you said that
We
they
will be
were
getting
falling
additional-
down and not doing
Right,
enough.
right.
And so will there be additional services to bring things up?
there's
Like
additional
deep-
people.
I guess,
So
well,
we
that's what
did-
I'm saying
yeah.
is like deep
Yes.
cleaning of things that were neglected.
Yes, yes, there is. And one of the things that we're doing, even in this emergency contract that we're asking for approval on, is we did spec full-time equivalent heads. So as you heard Ron's tell us, the number was 84,
83.4 is what the
83.4,
contract allowed.
which is probably 30 people more that was in, that the other company was using. So just the pure manpower alone is going to be able to allow them to meet our expectations of
So
cleaning.
before, you didn't specify how many
We did
people
not.
they needed to have
We did not.
on,
Yes,
We-
the
We
contract
bid the
with
scope of work only, not
And
the full-time
not the number
equivalent.
of
This,
people
this
needed.
contract will have both,
Oh.
and the emergency contract has both.
and this will cover the difference.
And this will cover that difference.
And this will only cover up until April?
Yes, ma'am.
So how much will it cost to have the airport cleaned annually?
Well, the new,
We're estimating about between 4 and 4.5
Yeah.
million per year.
yeah, that's both terminals. I mean, it's a huge contract,
Right.
obviously, so.
Rough estimate, prices may come back lower on a 3-year contract than, or
Short
bids
term.
that we got back, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's some cleaning.
Yeah.
Not quite what I
That's
think of cleaning lady.
Yeah. But we all know,
Yeah.
there's
it's-
clean, and then there's
There's-
clean. That's like when
Right.
the kids tell you the kitchen's clean, and you're like, really? No, it's not clean to me.
There's a Helen Keller method of cleaning.
That's right,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
okay. Any further? Pardon? Or a husband, there you go. That's right. So, happy to have
That's
a
all I
motion.
have, thank you.
Can we have a motion?
I have to make a motion that we pass Board Bill 185.
What those are guys' recommendations, second.
Is there a request for previous one? Is
Yeah, that's right.
there any objection to previous?
No
one?
objection.
Hearing no objection, Board Bill 185 passes out with a do-pass recommendation. Okay, next is Board Bill 186. Antonio?
Yep. And so, this board bill, I'll just give you a little bit of history. A few months ago, we came to you and talked about our new airport use and lease agreement with our airlines. And embedded in that airport use and lease agreement was a new 5-year pre-approved CIP plan. Something that had never occurred with the airport in many years, if ever. But with that 5-year CIP plan, on an annual basis, we still need to come to you and request your approval for the current year project. So this is for the fiscal year 17 projects, request to spend money from our airport development fund for the amount of projects for fiscal year 17. And then every single year, on an annual basis, we'll still come to you with the request that we need to spend money from our airport development fund for the list of projects for that year. So this request is for initial appropriation of $7.1 million from our airport development fund for fiscal year 17 projects. And so we respectfully request your approval for this ordinance.
And one thing that's important to note on this is we'll actually be spending quite a bit more money than that, I think to the tune of about 22 million for fiscal year 17. The rest of that money will come in grants. So this is the portion that we will need to be able to fund the CIP projects that were approved and that we're doing. But there is a significant amount of money that's coming to help support that in terms of grants.
And CIP is?
Capital Improvement Program, I'm sorry.
There we go. And is this the list of projects that you're, for 2017 that's attached in Exhibit A?
This is the initial appropriation list of projects for fiscal year 17. As we get as we get grant funding from AIP, or we get approval for PFC, passenger facility charges, we will have additional projects that will roll into this. appropriation.
One of the nice things is a result of our increased passenger growth this year. Our passenger facility charge, the PFC, we're actually collecting a lot more of it. Everyone that travels through the airports, there's a $4.50 passenger facility charge across the country that's applied. So for us, with the growth that we're seeing in passengers, that's helping that pool to also build. That pocket of money also helps fund these projects, so it's nice. We haven't been able to use any because most of it had already been set aside up through 2030 for use
Okay.
from the runway. So this is the first time we're really seeing some of that money freed up going forward as well to help us fund these projects.
Alderman Vaccaro?
No question.
Questions? Alderman Cone?
No questions.
Alderman Howard?
No questions.
Someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 186 with the two pass recommendations.
Second.
Previous rule.
Any objection to previous rule?
No objection.
Board Bill 186 passes out with the two pass recommendation. Next is Board Bill 187.
Board Bill 187, so this is part of a statewide planning process to mitigate congestion and reduce emissions. This project includes like pan, tilt, zoom cameras, signal optimization for intersections of Pear Tree Lane and Natural Bridge Road, Shop Drive, Cypress Road, and entrances and exits to Terminal 2. If anybody kind of visited Terminal 2, it can be very congested. So this project is to mitigate some of that congestion and relieve some of the emissions that are happening in that area. So the total cost of this project is $1.3 million, but we are receiving like a 80% transportation grant, so the only airport match is $260,000. So this request is for your approval to spend $260,000. The other portion of this project will come from a transportation grant from MoDOT. So we respectfully request your approval to go forward with this project.
We are really excited about this project, so.
Tell us how it's gonna change, just briefly. I don't wanna get in the weeds, but what's gonna
Ron's
get
probably
different?
better to address
I
that.
think the biggest part is the signal optimization, so on
Okay.
LIB, they'll all be in tune to reduce idling vehicles.
Okay.
And with that, there's the cameras that track the traffic and the lights to make sure they're operating correctly.
Mhm.
And then they're gonna reconfigure that, T2, the lanes right there.
Alderman Vaccaro?
No question.
Alderman Cone?
So are these the lanes that are running parallel to the highway?
Yes.
then? Okay.
Next to the terminal, so you have what we call LIB, Lambert International Boulevard.
Right.
Those are airport
That are
responsibility.
like underneath the metro?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. They kind of start as you come in off of either 70 or 170 as you enter to the exit and go all the way through from
And
Terminal
you
2 to
stop at
Terminal.
like 3 different
Yeah,
stoplights as
yeah.
you're trying to get to someplace.
And when
a
you
quarter
come in
mile
late
away.
at night, you're sitting
You're
there
still,
going,
yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
that's right.
Can I run them? And was anybody looking?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Okay.
So they will have cameras on them that will move the traffic through rather than if there's no,
Well, I think they will have cameras. I think the sensors is what actually motivates
well,
the
yeah,
traffic
the
through, or
sensors that-
censors the traffic to do
okay,
it.
so that if
The
you
cameras
come
are
in
more
at
for-
11 or 12 o'clock on a Monday, that you're not sitting there going,
Right.
yeah, okay, great, okay, that's all.
Alderman Howard, anything else?
No,
No.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 187,
Pass recommendation, second.
previous roll.
Any objections to this roll? Board Bill 187 passes out with a two pass recommendation. Next board, is that 187? Yes. I have two 187s here. And now we need 188. Okay, Board Bill 188.
Alderwomen, we're requesting your approval for the First Amendment to the wine bar concession agreement with Taste Incorporated doing business as Vino Volo. We're very happy about this. Vino Volo currently operates out of 400 square feet in Terminal 2. They opened in January 2016. This First Amendment adds 784 square feet of concession space to the T2 area, so their total space for concessions be about 1,100 square feet, and also 100 feet of storage space below on the apron level. It also adds 920 square feet of concession space for a new wine bar on Concourse A, directly across from gate A2 when you first enter the concourse. It increases the minimum annual guarantee payable to the city beginning in contract year 2, increases the percentage fees payable to the city for the Terminal 2 unit, sets out a new percentage fee structure for the Concourse A unit, and adds investment requirements totaling approximately $880,000 of spending in new construction for Vino Volo. It also extends the term of the agreement 3 years to end December 31st, 2023 for both units. We respectfully request your approval of this First Amendment.
Part of the reason that they've asked for an expansion is obviously they're doing extremely well. They turn people away every day because the venue's just too small. They also have a retail portion, which is great, and so most people that come in and do their wine tasting also buy. So the people that are turning away, they're not being able to sell to. So they think this should really substantially help grow their revenue, and they're thrilled with the location. It's been one of their best locations that they've opened.
Alderman Carl?
I do have questions. And I'm trying to remember, because I remember when they actually went in, I think there was some reason I was opposed to it.
There was a contract with, Host also bid the contract.
Right, which had minority participation, and
It
these
did.
guys do not.
They have minority participation, but it was smaller than what the Host had
Right.
preserved.
We had chosen, Host had bid higher, and Host had give us a better bid, but we went with the company with less minority participation.
Well,
And, well, I mean, they did. They had less
It
minority
didn't have
participation.
less participation. Host had bid 30% for JV, but they did not comply with the instructions in the RFP to provide a copy of their proposed joint venture for us to evaluate the merits of that. So therefore, we really could not consider that 30% and deemed it really to be zero. Vino Volo bid 5%, so in effect, they did bid a higher minority participation than did Host.
Host operates out there now, all over the place.
Yes, it
So,
did.
so for
So
bringing,
therefore, they
so
should
we,
have complied
so
with
we
the
bring,
directions.
so are they not meeting minority participation now?
No, they are in their current location, but each time there is a solicitation that goes out.
But then we suspected that they would also not in this new venture. I just know that at the time I had big issues
You
with
did,
it.
Joe.
And I still do, and then we're gonna extend it for 3 more years without going out for bid.
I think there's a
to,
couple of
you
things
know-
that are important to recognize with this. First of all, when we look at our overall DBE participation, and this is Amber's role, we far exceed from the airport overall participation what we are required to when we talk about the federal concession program. So Amber and her team have done a great job of watching those numbers, and we are exceeding it. This was a very specific concession that we wanted, a high-end wine bar. We've tried to look at the consumers, what we're lacking at the airport. The things that we hear is that there aren't enough lounges, which Rob put out an RFP for a new lounge this past week in Terminal 2, which we're excited to see how that comes out. We heard that there was a lot of dedicated beer, but there really were no dedicated wine areas. And the other one is Wi-Fi, which we still have to address. But what we've tried to do is come back and say, what are the consumers telling us through the airports? We have a lot of surveys, we have a lot of data that's telling us what we're lacking. So this was a very specific, we want a high-end wine bar where you've got people that understand wine. In addition to not meeting the requirement that was put forth in their joint venture program with us to validate whether or not that particular venue alone would generate 30% minority participation because they didn't have anything to validate this, and this was bid as an individual. They also did not present what we would consider a wine bar. They came in with a concept to say, let's bid wine, but they didn't have, sommeliers, they didn't have what we were looking for relative to what our consumers have been asking. So I think at the time, Alderman Carl, I remember your concerns very well in that I think what we've proven based on this agreement that we've had and this concept is that people absolutely love it. Part of the reason they've asked us to expand and a 3-year extension based on the fact that they're more than doubling that size and they're putting in shy of $1 million new investment in Terminal 1 for a brand new wine bar that today is dead space. I think the consumers are saying to them, we want more of you. And that they drove the consumers, via asking them, is what drove them to come to us and say, we've got to expand. Your customers want expansion.
Well, and I, you know, with no disrespect, I'm not gonna vote for this, but, you know, running, when I did citywide, the one
Mhm.
thing I'm hearing is we're not putting enough minority participation, and as a board, we've gone to, like, even on the NGA project, going to
Mhm.
38%, to say that there's a company out there that, because they didn't fill the paperwork out, right? Well, so then we put it back out for bid, and let's shoot for that minority participation.
Well, I think I'll let Amber address this, but
Well,
you have to remember, we are
yeah,
more than meeting
I-
our participation
I
at the airport.
understand it, but
So-
there is a company out there apparently that, I guess if they filled the paperwork out, well, rather than argue it, I'm just telling you what my feelings are,
Understood.
and no disrespect.
No,
I'm not
understood.
trying to, you know, I just won't support this because it doesn't, it takes away for the next 3 years an opportunity for another company. Now, if they want to expand or do whatever, that's fine, but I personally feel it should go back out for bid. And at least give other companies, not just the other one, but other companies the opportunity to come in. Because again, one of the goals that I see is that, you know, we're trying to find more minority participation. And to say, well, 5%, and even if they're hitting that 5%, you know, is that really what we should be looking at?
Well, you have to remember, this
Minimums
is a
and-
concept that their opportunity to actually have participation is
Right.
in the cleaning products that they use and in their cleaning services. They are a wine bar. They sell wine. So,
Well,
you know,
but-
that their opportunity, and that's what, actually, the BDD office looks at that, when you put out each individual contract. And, you know, we
Well-
take minority participation extremely serious at the airport. And the contract that we just presented you for the 1.3 million, that is 100% a minority contract. So when we look at trying to grow our minority contracts at the airport, I think we've been one of the highlights
But-
of the city in doing
but-
that.
The ownership of that is zero, right? If I remember, zero of the ownership of the company that's out there, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, Vino Volo has 0% ownership, minority ownership, right?
That's correct, it's
But-
not a
but-
minority-owned company.
No,
But,
it's not.
but Host, and I'm sure there's other companies out there, but Host is a minority-owned company, right?
No, they have
Joint
JVs,
ventures.
they have joint ventures that bring in minorities, just as, you know, no, they are not a minority-owned company, but they do have joint ventures. Now, they operate large concessionaires across the country. This small concept is not the same type of company that an HMO's Host is that operates multi-billion-dollar contracts across the country. This is a small one-off concept, so,
That's
you
all
know,
they do.
That's all they do.
That was just my concern.
Special-
I understand.
Specialty vendor.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned that we're gonna extend this 3 years and not at least put the opportunity out for other people to bid on it. That's just my thought.
Excuse me.
I'll defer to my colleague from the.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no.
You have
Alderman
a question?
Howard, Alderwoman Howard.
Okay.
No, you got
Yeah,
one.
The question I have is, they already were in for extending, they're already good, they've just completed 1 year.
That's
They will
correct.
in-
Correct.
In
That's correct.
January, is that correct?
Yes, and their
So
original
in essence,
contract,
we're not,
we wouldn't put it
making a
out for
new
bid anyway, we
contract.
just wouldn't have additional space.
Right,
Or
this
different
space does not work as a standalone concession, quite frankly, for a bid. They're able to do this in Terminal 2 because they have the management over there, they have the people over there, and if this goes, if you put this out for a concession, at the end of the term, you're not gonna have the economy of scale with 2 units, because 1 unit will end and you'll be left with 1 unit that really can operate as a standalone. We did look at it, we looked at storage space below and things that we just don't have it in the Terminal 1 unit. This is
So,
dead space on
but you're
Concourse A.
actually extending what they have in Terminal.
2,
well,
everything will
Terminal
be,
2, and
everything
then-
will be coterminous in 2023, they'll both end.
But
Both
the
spaces.
initial contract, Alderman Howard, for the space in Terminal 1 is only in its first year of an 8-year
Right,
contract.
right, Terminal 2, it goes to December 31st, 2020.
Right.
uh,
The original
is The
article.
original
So
for
in essence,
Terminal 2.
all we're doing is evaluating what they've done and realizing they need more space, and we're
Right.
giving them that.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. The other question I have is more technical under premises here. You said 784.
Right.
And it says here 734.
I'm sorry, it is, I know it is 7:34, you're
Okay, I
right.
He's
just wanted to make sure
dyslexic.
that maybe there wasn't a typo here.
It is 7:34.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just curious, so when we talk about minority participation, is this the ownership of the, I mean, or is this the participation in the business enterprise itself? Or is it the number of employees that they're hiring, or, you know, so
Employees is
what-
irrelevant, so I'll
Okay,
let Amber
so-
speak to them.
Ownership is based upon, again, who is the, who's the relevant owner and how they are certified. So the federal program, our city program mirrors that of the
The
federal,
federal,
which I know you're
right.
more familiar probably with the city program, but it's the same when it comes to the criteria, and that's at least 51% of the ownership of the company is reflected by either minority or woman-owned business.
So,
in
but
this
when we're
case.
talking about these bids, you know, like Host is not a minority-owned
No,
company,
they're
but they
not.
have the joint venture partnerships that have minority owners that are
Right.
participants in
That's
the
correct.
partnership.
Exactly.
So Vino Volo does not have a joint venture partner
They do not.
that is, you know,
They're a small
minority background or
concessionaire.
female background.
Host tends
So-
to be able to do
Because
these
how
things
many,
with
like, how many concessions do they have at the airport?
Host.
Host has all of the concessions
Right.
with the exception of two. We have put out two direct bids.
Right.
One is for the Schlafly Pasta House that's in Terminal 2, and one was the Vino Volo. And that's because we wanted very specific concepts. We wanted local concepts with the Schlafly one, and Host didn't want to take that space on and put another local concept in. So we have the ability at the airport agreement to put out a direct, and then the Vino Volo. The lounge that we're putting out, which was released last week, is also going to be a direct with the airport. It's not an airline-supported lounge like you see the Admirals Club. We took that upon ourselves to say, you know, based on the consumer feedback, they want a lounge in Terminal 2. So we're hopeful that we'll see a number of vendors bid that lounge.
Will
Host
that
has
be a
the,
membership-based lounge?
it'll be both. It'll be membership or it'll be day pass lounge.
Okay. So I guess where I'm going with this, so Host, which, you know, has minority participation in its venture, I mean, they have significant opportunity and investments in the airport as it is.
Right.
And they're able to
So-
spread that across several locations.
Right.
But they're just not able to provide what the consumers are wanting in terms of a wine bar.
That's
right?
correct.
And so, okay. So how much does it cost to build one of these?
They build it themselves. That's in their
Right.
investment. So the initial
But how
investment,
much, like roughly,
about $800,000.
so that's a pretty sizable investment that
Huge
people are
investment.
making. And, you know, when we're talking about extending a lease, I mean, a 3-year agreement, $800,000 for 3-year investment is pretty
Very.
significant.
It's a huge investment.
So, anyways, I kind of
You know,
wanted
I-
to understand some of the,
Yeah.
like,
Well, I
business
think, you know, in
behind
any
it.
sort, in any lease, you can always get a shorter term
Mhm.
if the landlord, in this case the airport, would be willing to do this build-out.
Mhm.
And then they, you know, but
Right.
the airport doesn't have $880,000 laying around
Right.
to do the build-out themselves. And so they're asking the tenant, in this case, to invest that money, and the tenant has to somehow recoup that investment over a period of time.
Which if we tell the tenant that we're going to expect you to put $800,000 into this facility, and then, you know, we're not gonna give you the option to renew your lease at the end of it,
Right.
you know, I mean,
No, thank
that's-
you. We don't want- we're
right,
not
no, thank
interested.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly, thank you.
Yeah, so that's
the-
part of the
That's all my
issue.
questions.
Okay, any other questions? Take a motion?
I move that we pass Board Bill 188 with the pass recommendation,
Second.
previous roll.
I will
although,
object to that.
yeah,
Would the clerk please call roll?
I wasn't sure, but I
Fine.
just thought I'd throw it out there.
I mean, I voted
Alderman
against
Linda,
it
please.
last time.
Alderman Vaquero,
No.
Alderman
Aye.
Cohen, Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
Chairwoman Krewson,
Aye.
3 ayes and 1 no.
Board Bill 188 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you all for.
Thank
being
you all
here.
very much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. And one side note, because we have to brag about this.
Yeah.
If November and December stay as strong as the first 10 months of the year, we will have an addition to 1 million passengers through our airport this year. So you guys should be
That's
very
actually
thankful and very
exciting.
proud of helping us get there. Thank you.
Yes.